Hello, Big Reds. This is Mr. Fischel. What a great day to be a Big Red today. So today what we're going to do is I can review Unit 2, Learning Targets 1 through 6. Our success criteria is I know how to answer all test-like questions. So everything I'm going to give you is going to be similar to something that you need to know. Obviously not the same, but this will guide your studying and your preparation for tomorrow's big test for Unit 2. Okay? So first of all, you have to be able to identify several different types of things. If I have an object, I'm just going to make an object like this. Make a triangle. Okay, I'm going to label that triangle A, B, C. Okay, well, I should be able to do any reflections with that, right? So I should be able to reflect it over the x-axis. Now, if I look at the coordinates, C is the coordinate 1, 1. A is the coordinate, I'm sorry, negative 1, 1, my mistake. A is the coordinate negative 1, 3. And B is the coordinate 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Negative 5, 1. Now if I want to reflect this over the x-axis and the y-axis, I should be able to do that. I should be able to recognize those reflections, what they look like, and should be able to know what happens to the points. Okay, so when I reflect it down here, B prime looks like this, C prime looks like this, and A prime looks like this. I'm going to connect that. Connect those points. All right, so if I look at those, I look at B. B is negative 5, negative 1. C is negative 1, negative 1. And A prime is negative 1, negative 3. Notice the difference. When I'm reflecting over the x-axis, the x stays the same. The y changes signs. So if you look at A is negative 1, 3, it changes to negative 1, negative 3. B is negative 5, negative 1, changes to negative 5, negative 1. So that's the difference. That's the formula. So when you're reflecting over the x-axis again, xy goes to x negative y. All right, next, I'm going to take ABC, reflect over the y-axis. When I do that, I get these points. I'm going to connect those. Okay, those are the points. This is point 5, 1. This is the point 1, 1. This is the point 1, 3. Okay, so you look at from A to A prime, negative 1, 3 to 1, 3. B goes from negative 5, 1 to 5, 1. C goes from negative 1, 1 to 1, 1. What's happening? Well, the y's are staying the same, the x are changing signs. So when you reflect over the y-axis, xy goes to negative xy. Y stays the same. Good way to remember it. When you reflect over the y-axis, y stays the same. When you reflect over the x-axis, the x stays the same. All right? So those are a couple things that you're going to need to be able to do. All right, don't be afraid to use graph paper if you need to. That's great. All right? All right, now we got some other things. Talk about rotations. Let's flip the paper over and talk about rotations. So if you could please, on your paper, make an XY coordinate grid, coordinate plane. Oh boy, that was a little sloppy there at the end. Okay, so I'm going to make I'm just going to make a segment now to make it a little easier for you. I'm going to start with a segment over here. This point is going to be the point -2, 2. That'll be our point A this time. We got 2, 4, 6. This point will be -6, 1, and this will be our B. Let's just quickly go through all the rotations that you're going to have to be able to do. All right, so if I'm always rotating counterclockwise, unless it says otherwise. Okay, so we're planning on rotating counterclockwise. So if I rotate this counterclockwise, okay, A is going to become, or A prime, sorry, it's going to become -2, -2. And B prime is going to become -1. B prime is going to become -1, -6. That's rotating at 90 degrees counterclockwise. Okay, if you look at the points now, let's look at the -6, 1 becomes -1, -6. Well, what happens to the 1 and the 6? They change spots, don't they? So the rule is, okay, the y goes up front and it becomes the opposite. So it becomes -y. The x goes to the back, stays the same. So it just becomes x. So it becomes -yx. You're going to have to know these formulas. They're very important. You're going to have to write them out on the test. So you have to know the formulas. Must know the formulas. All right, now I'm going to take these original points again, and I'm going to rotate them 180 degrees. So my new point's going to be, it's going to be my other A prime, 2, -2. And B is going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, -1. And I'm going to connect those. Okay, so now what happens? Let's look up here. Let's look at the 6s and the 1s again, okay? You look, this becomes, this is -6, 1 up here, the B is. And down here, this is 6, -1. So did the x and y change places from here to here? No, they didn't. Okay, the only thing they did was change signs. So the rule for 180 degree rotation is xy goes to the opposite sign of x and the opposite sign of y. Okay, now let's rotate it one more time. Let's rotate it from here to 70. Okay, so when we rotate 270, there's our line right there. When we rotate 270 degrees counterclockwise, I have to write a rule for that, and you should be able to identify something from that. So if I'm looking at -6, 1, 1, 6. So those are obviously changing, right? Now you notice 6 and the 1 change spots again. So again, I'm going to have to start with the y and with the x. Now the y, the 1, stayed the same. It didn't change signs. So I'm going to start off with just a plain y. And for x, -6 becomes +6. That means I changed signs, so it becomes a -x. So you're going to have to know all of those rules and be able to recognize all those rotations on the test tomorrow. Very, very, very important. Okay, hopefully you have no questions so far. You have a few more transformations you want to be able to recognize. Okay, I'll do this one not on graph paper. Just going to make a shape. And I'm going to make a dilation of that shape. Remember, dilations can be bigger or smaller, so this is just really approximate, it's not perfect. All right, so I'm going to make this A, B, C, and A prime, B prime, and C prime. Now, I always start off when this is a dilation, correct? Dilation is always going to go from A to A prime, B to B prime, and C to C prime. So when I'm doing that, what's happening? Well, it's getting bigger. So this one happens to be an enlargement. All right? So that is called a dilation. That is the name of the transformation. And it is an enlargement. You'll definitely have to know that tomorrow as well. Okay, let's go back to the graph paper again. Okay, I have to know what a translation looks like. Remember, translation is just a slide. So if I take a triangle right here, I'm drawing this freehand for a little bit, and then maybe a triangle down here. Okay, that's obviously not a rotation. It didn't turn at all. It's not a reflection because they're not opposites. It's just moved this way. That's called a translation again. Then if you wanted to find out how far it was translated, you could look at a point. Say this is A, this is A prime. You could see, well, it's gone down 1, 2, starting from here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 spots. So you'd make a rule. In this case, it didn't go over, so it just stays X and Y minus 7. That might be a formula you would use. All right, so you're going to have a translation of some type on the test that you're going to have to be able to figure out the formula for. Okay. Now, you're going to have to be able to look at a shape and determine how it got there, what composition of transformations. Remember, composition of transformations. Composition of transformations is important, remember. So if I'm going from, just going to make something up. Okay, how do I get from here to here? Well, first I reflected over this line. Then translated. So another thing you're going to have to do is be able to recognize what two transformations are taking place. If you're given a couple of transformations, what are they going to look like? So that's important as well. Okay, go to the back of your line sheet of paper. You're going to have to know something is a reduction or enlargement. We went over that already. You have to take points, graph them, and then rotate them a certain degree, and you're going to have to use your formulas. You got to know your formulas for rotation. Okay. And you're going to have to move an object. Let's say you had a object on your graph paper like this, and it may tell you you have to move 2 units to the left and 10 units down. So you should be able to do that as well. All right, but that's basically what you need to know for tomorrow's test. Obviously the questions are going to be all different than I've talked to you about, but if you want to study, you want to focus your studying, this is definitely what you want to do. So thanks for listening, and go Big Reds.